This DV8 off-road lightweight rear bumper is for those of you that have a 2018 and up JL that are looking for an aftermarket rear bumper that's going to provide a little bit more protection and some additional features where your factory rear bumper can be lacking. This is going to be a pretty easy 2 out of 3 wrenches for the installation. It is going to be a 2 because of the wiring involved in getting this light hooked up. That's pretty much across the board for all aftermarket JL bumpers because the factory license plate is on the factory bumper. So keep that in mind, a little bit of wiring involved here, but we're going to talk you through it and show you how to get this bumper installed in just a second. So again, a lot of you are going to be shopping for an aftermarket rear bumper for a change of look, for more protection, and for more features. This bumper is going to have all of that, and we're going to show you exactly what it adds when we have it side by side with your factory rear bumper. DV8's known for building a pretty high quality product at a pretty fair price. This bumper is going to come in at right around that $520 mark, which is pretty much par for the course for steel rear bumpers for your Jeep. Most of them are going to be right in and around that price range for a bumper that has the same features and build quality as this one. So overall, I think it's a pretty good deal. Let me go ahead and show you how to get this thing installed. For this installation, we used a couple of different sockets, an 8mm, 10mm, 16mm, 18mm, and 21mm socket. We also used a 22mm socket to remove our lug nuts, but we don't have factory lug nuts on our Jeep, so that might vary for you. We also needed a 4mm Allen head socket and a 10mm wrench for that license plate bracket. We used a T40 Torx bit to remove the camera cover on the Jeep, but you could also use the tool from the factory Jeep toolkit. We also needed a 3/8 extension. We used a 3/8 electric impact driver and 3/8 pneumatic impact driver, and finally a trim tool and a small screwdriver to remove the wiring harness. So this is going to be a pretty easy bolt-on installation. Of course, with the new JL, they have a license plate mount in the factory bumper and a license plate light in the factory bumper. So with any new bumper you're going to be putting on the Jeep, you are going to have to do a little bit of wiring to get a new light set up on your license plate. That's going to keep you legal. So there's always that aspect. That's going to bump all of these rear bumpers up into a 2 out of 3 wrenches for the installation. But again, it's just for the wiring of the license plate light, which is pretty easy to do. So the first step in installing a new bumper is of course removing the factory one, and in order to do that, there are a couple of plastic splash shields on the inside of the fender well here that we're going to have to remove. That will give us access to a couple of bolts that we have to remove to get that bumper out of the way. After removing the plastic cover, that gives us access to these bolts here that hold the bumper onto this bumper bracket, so we're going to remove those. Then we'll repeat the process on the other side. Now we're going to move on to removing these 2 small bolts that hold the bumper onto the rear cross member. While we're underneath the Jeep, we're also going to reach up and unplug the license plate light wiring harness. That way it's not in the way when we remove the rest of the bumper. The next couple of bolts we need to remove to get the bumper off the Jeep are these 2 right here that hold the bumper onto the end of the frame. Now we'll remove the same 2 bolts on the other side to remove the bumper from the Jeep. The last thing we need to do before pulling the bumper off the Jeep is unplug the license plate wiring harness. In order to do that, there's a small plastic safety clip. We'll use a small screwdriver to pop that out of the way. As you can see, we have the wiring harness unplugged. Now we can just grab the bumper and give it a pull to remove it from the Jeep. We're gonna be able to work ours around our spare tire. If you choose to, you can remove your spare to make this just a little bit easier. With the bumper removed from the Jeep, the last bit of disassembly we have to do is removing these outer bumper brackets. They're not going to be reused for the new bumper installation, they're just going to be in the way, so we'll remove them now. So when you have the DV8 off-road bumper here right next to the factory bumper, you can really see the similarities and the differences, and this bumper is going to be very, very different. There are some bumpers, when we put them side by side, it's quite clear that you have a steel bumper and a plastic bumper, but the general shape is going to be the same. This one is going to be very, very different. It's very angular, it has a lot of hard lines, and it is a little bit more minimalist than your factory bumper is going to be. This one actually looks really bulky in comparison, but if you were just looking at the factory bumper, it doesn't look overly bulky. Now, what I do like about this bumper is that right off the bat, it does wrap around on the side, so it is going to offer a little bit of side protection to the tub. Now, your factory bumper also wraps around to the sides, but being that it's plastic, it doesn't actually offer a lot of protection there. This bumper, being the lightweight version, does have a lot of material removed from it, a lot of cutouts, again, giving it that angular look, but also keeping the weight down, where your factory plastic bumper is going to be a lot chunkier. Now, this bumper does have a lot of features built into it that your factory bumper is not going to have. So this is going to have 2 D-ring mounts, and it does come with the D-rings. Your factory front bumper doesn't have any recovery points on it. You do have a tow hook that bolts directly below that bumper, but I much prefer a D-ring. It holds a tow strap much more securely. It's not going to pop off like it could with a hook, so this is going to be a big feature for you. If you do have parking sensors, which obviously our factory Jeep does not, this is pre-drilled for those parking sensors, making the install much easier. If you don't have parking sensors like we don't, it does come with these rubber plugs in there. Now, some people won't like the look of the plugs. If you're okay with it, they're going to be fine there. They are going to still finish off the look of the bumper a little bit. Now, one thing that this bumper is not going to have that some of the other DV8 bumpers do have is provisions already put in them for a tire carrier. This is a lightweight bumper. It doesn't have that hole drilled in it for a tire carrier, so keep that in mind. If you're looking for a tire carrier ready bumper, maybe look at one of the other ones from DV8 or one of the other brands out there. One of the other things I do want to point out on this bumper is that it has this nice deep cutout, just like your factory front bumper does. That's going to allow for a factory spare, even something a little larger than a factory spare, to sit in that area without having any clearance issues with the bumper itself. This has a cutout here for your factory 2-inch receiver, where your factory bumper also is clearanced for that. Now, your factory bumper has the license plate built right into it, and that's something new that manufacturers are having to deal with the JL. That's new for this generation. And this bumper from DV8 does have a provision for a license plate mount as well as a license plate light, and it comes with both, which is great, but in my opinion, it feels a little bit like an afterthought. The license plate bracket is sort of just bolted right on top of the bumper there. Overall, it's not a bad look, but because of the design of this bumper and it being so angular and so minimalist, there's not a lot of room to integrate that plate directly into the bumper. So this was their solution. If you like the design, it's perfectly fine. It's gonna work. It does come with the bracket and the light, which are good things. I just wish it was a little bit more integrated into the bumper. So DV8 doesn't usually include any sort of written instructions with their products. So once we got the bumper out of the box, we held it up to the Jeep. There are a couple other things that I do want to remove. So there are bolts that go into the bottom of the frame rails. On this side here, there's also the threaded plate that bolt goes into. That's all going to disappear. There is a bracket on the cross member here. There are 2 long bolts that hold that in place. That's going to come off. And on the other side, the tow hook is going to come off as well. So once we get those removed, then we can start with the installation of our new bumper. There are just a few last steps of preparation we need to do to the Jeep before we can get our new bumper installed. One of those is putting this nut plate into place. So on the bottom of the passenger side frame rail, there are 2 holes drilled, but they're just through holes, they're not threaded. We need to be able to thread a bolt in there. So that's where this nut plate comes in. You simply slide it into the frame rail over top of those 2 holes, and we'll actually end up using that once the bumper's in place. Now, the reason we only have 1 is from the factory, the driver's side holes are threaded because that's where that factory tow hook was, so we only have 1 nut plate to deal with, not 2. The other thing that we need to do to finish preparing the Jeep is to remove the factory spare tire. Now, sometimes with these aftermarket bumpers, you can wrestle them between the crossmember and the spare tire, but it's going to be much easier for us to actually remove the spare to bolt the bumper in place. Now, this is a very simple process. You can either use your Jeep toolkit or any T40 Torx bit to rotate the lock on the camera cover, pull that off, pull your lug nuts, and pull the spare tire off the Jeep. And we're gonna do that now. Now the Jeep is all prepped. The last bit of preparation we need to do to our bumper is to get this license plate bracket fully installed. So we can set it over top of the holes where it's gonna go, make sure everything lines up. We're gonna go ahead and prepare our nut and bolt hardware. So you have these small Allen head bolts. You're gonna put a flat washer right on the bolt. That'll go through our license plate bracket and through our bumper. And then on the back side, we have another flat washer, followed by a lock washer, and then finally the nut. Get that nut just started by hand so nothing's gonna fall off on us. With the Jeep and the bumper fully prepped, it's finally time to install the bumper onto the Jeep. We're gonna grab a friend to give us a hand holding the bumper in place while we get some of these factory bolts in place. Then once we have it tacked up there, we can install the rest of the hardware and get everything torqued down. As you can see, we have one bolt in each side holding the bumper into place. Now we're underneath the Jeep and we're gonna put the rest of the hardware in. We have another factory bumper bolt that we'll thread into the frame here. And then on the bottom, you had one bolt that came in your factory tow hook that we're going to install. And then we also had another factory bolt from the other side that we're going to install over here on the driver's side. So both of these bolts go in here because DV8 provided us with new hardware to go in their nut plate over on the passenger side. Once we got everything started by hand, we'll move over to the other side, start that hardware, then come back and torque everything down. This is the hardware that DV8 provided us with. So we have a bolt, lock washer, flat washer combination. And when you're starting them into the nut plate, you want to be a little bit gentle with the first one to make sure you don't bump that nut plate out of the way. But once you get that started, there we go. You can hang on to that, make it a little easier to get the second one started. Now that everything's started by hand, we can grab our impact and torque it down. All of the mounting holes in the bumper are slotted, so it gives you a little bit of adjustability. You want to make sure that your gaps are even all the way around when torquing everything up. But once you're done that, the last step is going to be wiring up your new license plate light. And we already talked about that. This is something new that you're going to have to do on pretty much every aftermarket JL bumper. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do this because there are a variety of different ways. One would be to cut off the factory connector from your factory bumper, connect it to these wires, and then thread that down and plug it into the factory connection. That's a perfectly fine option. The other is because your new light is so close to the tail light, you can pretty easily drill a hole in the bottom of the tail light there, tap into your parking light circuit right into the tail light. So again, a couple different options. It's up to you how you get that wired up. But either way, if you are looking for a pretty high quality bumper that is going to be a little bit lighter weight than some of the other steel bumpers out there on the market, but still has a lot of features built into it, I would recommend taking a look at this option from DV8 Off-Road, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.